So you really think Vietnam War was all about war, justice, and progress? Yeah, sure. Let me tell you what really happened. Welcome to Sidavi's story, where history gets roasted and logic takes a coffee break. Explorers, today we're diving into one of the most confusing wars in human history, the Vietnam War. Imagine two superpowers arguing over who gets to tell a small country how to live, and then turning that country into a real-life apocalypse. From 1955 to 1975, the Vietnam War became the headline of the century, filled with politics, napalm, and bad weather. This wasn't just a fight between North and South Vietnam. It was also mosquitoes versus everyone. By 1968, over 500,000 American troops were in Vietnam, enough to fill 6 football stadiums. The U.S. believed if Vietnam fell to communism, the whole world would turn red, the domino theory. And thus the Cold War got a little too hot in Southeast Asia. Vietnam became the chessboard of ideology. North backed by the USSR and China, South backed by the US. It wasn't about land, it was about proving whose idea of freedom looked cooler. And that, explorers, is how a jungle became a political battlefield. Both sides prepared for a war no one really understood. Lesson 1. Never start a war where the mosquitoes are stronger than your army. Soon, the skies of Vietnam buzzed with helicopters and chaos. And just like that, history pressed play on another long, loud, tragic movie. The whole world watched as the small nation became a symbol of global tension. But before America jumped in, Vietnam had already spent a lifetime fighting invaders. Let's go back.
Long before the US showed up, Vietnam was part of French Indochina. The French came in the 1800s and said, "Bonjour, we own this now." The Vietnamese said, "Wait, what?" Enter Ho Chi Minh, the revolutionary who fought for free Vietnam and never took a break. He fought the Japanese, the French, and later the Americans, multitasking at its finest. In 1954, at Dien Bien Phu, the Vietnamese defeated the French in an incredible underdog victory. The French packed up and left, and suddenly, Vietnam stood alone, divided but determined. The country was split at the 17th parallel, North Communist, South Anti-Communist. The peace was fragile. Everyone smiled, but no one trusted anyone. And then the Cold War superpowers stepped in to make everything worse. The US began funding and training South Vietnam, preparing for the inevitable. And by inevitable, I mean the next act of chaos. The 1960s rolled in like a thunderstorm of ideology, ambition, and napalm. Get your helmets ready, it's about to rain history lessons. The war that changed everything was about to begin. The stage was set for the US to answer the nightmare. Next, napalm, chaos, and the jungle that never forgave.
Then came the 1960s, when peace signs met machine guns. The US joined to stop communism, but ended up fighting farmers with sandals. The Viet Cong were guerrilla fighters. They hid underground and struck from the shadows. Meanwhile, American troops were stuck in heat, rain, and bad directions. Bombs, helicopters, and confusion filled the skies. Agent Orange destroyed forests, crops, and caused decades of suffering. For the first time, war was broadcast into living rooms, raw and real. The Vietnam War became the world's first televised war, and the world couldn't look away. Back home, protests grew. The people weren't buying the government story anymore. In 1968, the Tet Offensive shocked the world and proved the war was far from over. Cities turned into battlegrounds, and hope was buried under rubble. The war had become endless, a nightmare looping with no pause button. Soldiers faced horror daily, while the world debated who was right. Decades later, historians still debate the countless mistakes made here. But eventually, even chaos runs out of fuel. Time for the aftermath. Let's see what the cost really was.
After years of chaos, protests, and millions of casualties, the end finally came. In 1975, Saigon fell, a scene of panic, desperation, and final goodbyes. The last U.S. troops left, ending a war that no one truly won. Over 58,000 Americans and more than 3 million Vietnamese lost their lives. Entire cities vanished, memories buried under ashes. Lesson learned: never underestimate a people fighting for their home. But out of tragedy came change, peace movements, and lessons in journalism and politics. The media changed forever. Truth found its way to every living room. Today, Vietnam is peaceful, fast-growing, filled with scooters instead of soldiers. The country rebuilt itself from the ruins, stronger and more united. But we never forget the cost. History is painful, but it teaches if we dare to listen. From ashes to ambition, Vietnam's story continues. But what about those who fought and came home? Let's talk about the veterans, the heroes, and the haunted, because the war didn't end when the fighting stopped. Let's take a moment to explore some of the wildest and true facts from the Vietnam War. Buckle up, because this history gets weird. Fact 1. Mosquitoes were basically an army of their own. Soldiers feared them almost as much as bullets. Malaria took down more troops than actual combat. Imagine trying to fight while getting bitten every 3 seconds. Some soldiers even joked the real enemy was six-legged and had wings. Fact 2. Chemical warfare. The US spreaded Agent Orange, meant to clear jungles, but it ended up causing devastating health issues that still echo today. Over 20 million gallons of herbicide turned vast jungles into wastelands, and no, it wasn't some new diet planned for trees. Fact 3. Propaganda radio. Both sides blasted emotional music and fake messages to confuse or demoralize the enemy. Imagine hearing your own side surrender over the wrong channel. At one point, American soldiers heard a fake voice of a girlfriend begging them to go home. Creepy, definitely. Effective, sometimes. Fact 4. The Coochie Tunnels, 250 kilometers of underground cities, kitchens, hospitals, even theaters. Talk about underground entertainment. These tunnels were so hidden that soldiers could vanish like ghosts. 1 second, poof, gone into the earth. Harry Potter would be jealous. Fact 5. Sandals made from old tires, durable, cheap, and silent. They left fake footprints to confuse pursuers. Genius, eco-friendly warfare. While US boots fell apart in the mud, these recycled wonders just kept marching. Proof that sometimes less is more. Fact 6. America dropped more bombs in Vietnam than in all of World War II, and still didn't win. Ouch. Over 7 million tons of explosives. That's not a war. That's a fireworks show that got out of hand. Fact 7. The monsoon rains. It could pour for weeks, soaking everything. Guns jammed, food spoiled, tempers exploded. Literally wet chaos. Every drop, every mosquito, every underground tunnel, they all remind us that Vietnam wasn't just a war of weapons. It was a war of endurance, creativity, and survival. Many veterans returned home to protests and confusion. For many, the real war began when they came back home. PTSD haunted countless soldiers for decades. Agent Orange exposure caused lifelong health struggles for thousands. But veterans also built support networks, healing each other with shared strength. Their stories became lessons for the next generation. Former enemies met as friends, proof that peace is possible. Today, Vietnam thrives, its people looking forward while remembering the past. The scars remain, but so do the lessons. Even Stickmen don't want to respawn in the jungle, because knowledge is the only weapon that builds instead of destroys.
And that, explorers, is the story of the Vietnam War. Brutal, tragic, but full of lessons. If you've made it this far, you're officially the History Squad. So what do you think? If you've enjoyed this journey, tap that like button gently, not the napalm strike. Subscribe, comment, and share this video to keep our adventures alive. Thank you for watching. See you on the next historical mission. And don't forget to sleep.